questions.
Thank you very much, Stuart, for that insight. That was that's amazing to hear, and it's beautiful to hear those stories.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really nice to share it too. Yeah, I love talking about my experiences with Grandpa with people who are keen to hear about them as well.
Excellent, because we want to hear about them, and I got a bunch of questions for you.
Right, awesome.
All right, so thank you very much, Stuart. Great presentation, a lot of good information. We really enjoyed the talk. We are now into the question and answer session of season 1, episode 18 of PTV presentations. So we've got quite a few questions lined up. We'd love to have some more. I have some questions I'd like to ask as well. So we'll go ahead and begin. So let's Bill Mollison, your grandfather, had a wealth of life experiences and traveling the world so many times. How did he make that possible to do that? And do you think you'll be able to, or how would someone else, or do you think you'll be able to do the same?
That's a very good question, and it's one of those dilemmas I constantly have: is how can I travel more, or how can I, teach more? Because I always have these amazing opportunities to teach, Mozambique, Malawi, but it's the nature of the permaculture thing. You've got to pay for your own flights and things too. And I think for me, the answer has been a bit more business savvy, or a bit more financially independent, or creating a livelihood for myself that can support that. So that's where my focus is on in Australia. And I think that's where using your existing set of skills to provide that source of income. Like when I first went to Brazil in 2007 to the International Permaculture Convergence, I paid for it with my wages as waitering and doing bartending. And Grandpa said, "Oh, that was a great way. Like you just make it work, and you work with the opportunities you got. Like we can't all work in permaculture teaching. There's just so many great teachers out there, but we can all, practice permaculture in different ways, and that might be through, working at a grocery store, or it might be, growing mushrooms, or working at a community garden and selling your produce from there. Like there are numerous ways to save up for traveling as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, cool.
I think you said something very important, and that was that you must, in order to be able to provide back to the community and to be able to provide for the less fortunate, you've got to be able to have that foundation yourself, invest in yourself to be able to do those other things. And that's an important thing to know.
It's definitely foundational, because if you don't have, like I just went over to Mexico with a big sum of money from working in a warehouse for a year, and I kind of spent that on projects, and I came back to Australia, I didn't have that foundation for myself. So, but if I'd worked smarter, not harder, I would have had something in Australia to come back to, and then I would have been able to help the projects over there more. So it's having that kind of insight into how you work, or how you serve the planet as well. And it's really coming up with that, people care, or care for self as well. And I think we've got to be a little bit easier on ourselves, that we are doing the best, we can at any one time as well, and to kind of, celebrate the good moments and find the fun in the happy events too. So, that's been a big lesson I've learned. But for the way Bill did it, I think he could kind of get away with it because he had that kind of personality. He had a really kind of captivating, awe-inspiring, like hypnotic storytelling, amazing laughter. And, he could kind of, he addressed the UN once, his wife Lisa said, and he just had them all in stitches rolling on the floor in laughter, and then he had them crying in compassion next. Like, who can work an audience like that? I don't know anyone that can do that, or politicians that are elected by popular vote. They haven't got those kind of public speaking skills. So in terms of that, I think he was just really, really working to his strengths to be able to work an audience too, and kind of, you know, captivate them with incredible stories. So I think that was his skills. So I think we've got to play to, in regards to that, I think we've just got to play to our own personal strengths.
Yeah, my experience, I wasn't fortunate enough to meet Bill in person, but I've watched everything I could that he put out.
Yeah.
As much as I could. And I loved it was an older PDC, I think it was back in the 80s, with Jeff Lawton was in it as well. And the stories he would tell were amazing. I find myself rewatching it and fast forwarding to his stories, trying to find each story. Amazing stories, and you never would have thought it was true.
Oh no, you've got to see it or be there, I think, to believe it. But there was like with his passing, there's been some amazing photos coming up online, like that nobody in the family's ever seen before because they're so old. And there's, like, he's always told this story about finding a giant squid on the west coast of Tasmania, and nobody's ever believed him. But sure enough, this photo surfaced on Facebook, and you're like, holy shit, it is true. Like, yeah, there's just some things you just can't believe until you see the picture to put it in place. But yeah, it's just, yeah, a real, you know, honour and privilege to be able to know the man and be a really good mate of his too. Yeah. And I think those experiences we shared, and he kind of gave me the travel bug. He kind of told me I was just this little boy from a kind of isolated fishing village, and he told me these stories of like going to Africa and teaching communities. I'm like, who is this guy? Like, it's kind of like the best version of Santa Claus you can ever think of, I think, for a little child to be kind of inspired by these incredible stories. And yeah, he loved telling stories to us all.
All right, let's jump into some of the viewers' questions. The first question I have is from Brian. He says, in your global implementation of permaculture systems, is your biggest obstacle environmental factors like water access or government bureaucracy like permits and drafts?
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good question. Like, it's the government bureaucracy for sure, and it's working with those government agencies or the government bodies too. And for me, in regards to that, it's establishing legal land tenure or legal ownership for a dwelling or a community. So actually having the title of the land is the biggest thing. And then you can kind of invest your water, you know, your water infrastructure and then your sewage infrastructure as well, which are imperative, because we've done a lot of case studies at university of the biggest slum in India, Dharavi, where communities have actually put in this infrastructure but haven't had the legal land tenure. And because the price has gone up, they've been kicked out and lost their houses. So for me, that's a reason, or for the, you know, kind of industry, for want of a better term, that's the reason why people live in scholars, because they can't invest, because when they invest, they get kicked out. So it's coming up with that initial thing, yeah, legal land ownership, and then you've got, you know, your bureaucrats are on board, and then you can do your kind of food, water, and sanitation, the kind of holy trinity of it all.
Yeah, and I think it's becoming so closely tied together, like water access and politicians seems to be very closely tied right lately.
Yeah, and it's a big issue, yeah.
Yeah. I was, one of my favorite quotes from your grandfather was in a interview he did with Scott London, and he said, it's a revolution, but permaculture is anti-political. There's no room for politicians or administrators or priests, and there are no laws either. The only ethics we obey are care of earth, care of people, and reinvestment to those ends. I thought that was my favorite quote ever.
Yeah, and that's kind of his gift there. It's in the communication. It's in his level of articulation was just incredible. It's astounding. Like, he could just, you know, come out with these mind-blowing quotes, and people are like, I've got to write that down. And he was just like halfway through the next one. It's just like where he was coming from. He was just such a deep thinker. And yeah, being able to witness that. But yeah, it's just like I had no idea what was going on as a kid. Like I was just busy writing in my notebook, and he was just having all these incredible visitors from around the world doing incredible projects. So having that, level of, inspiration for me as a kid was pretty, and my brothers, is pretty, life-changing. But going back to that question about bureaucracy, it's often in these developing countries, you're working with corrupt bureaucracies as well. And often how you have to work with corrupt bureaucracies is by bribing, and the lower income communities can't afford to be bribed. And that's where the power of permaculture comes in, because it is a grassroots movement, and it teaches people that, they've got the power in themselves to be this change too.
Yeah, I really like the illegal gardens, and
yeah,
you can get those in place and provide those for communities, and they become not dependent, but they rely on being able to go out and harvest some food or really enjoy that. When they try and take those away is when you get the outreach from the community. And no, that was very important to us, and I think that's super important.
Yeah, and it brings, gardens bring people together as well, and yeah, a lot of things come out of that social resilience that's fostered there as well. Things I know you can't expect, or you can't plan for, or you can't design for, and that's the thing that kind of excites me, or keeps me kind of engaged with the permaculture world of things. There's just so many incredible projects to be, hopeful and optimistic about. It's absolutely astounding. The level permaculture is increasing at the moment. It's absolutely amazing. Like, it's just going from strength to strength to strength here globally, and in Victoria globally, and like it's just becoming a really, strong word from a grassroots movement. So I think it's starting to make some massive inroads, and there's some incredible land management professionals working with it, which are doing some incredible things on massive broadacre properties as well. So I think we are making the right, moves in towards, regenerative ag, and, moving away from monoculture on the broadacre. And that's what really gets me excited about Darren Doherty's work. Permaculture is, can be seen as a small scale thing, or that's how a lot of people interpret it. But I think that the really important things about Darren's work is he kind of moves that over to, the broadacre realm of things as well, and thinks about things in a different strategical manner. Like Bill did do a lot of broadacre permaculture designs, but and a lot of his students do broadacre permaculture designs, but it's interesting to see these different, amazing shoots or developments, and that's where we get the great conversations we can develop at a, peer review or professional level, and really critique and learn from each other, rather than, negative dissing people or taking people down. We can actually learn from each other's work, which is really exciting development for me to see in the last few years.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm on the same board. I love seeing all of the innovation coming out and products being developed. And,
it's incredible. Yeah,
all around permaculture, and I think that's just, it brings in more people. I think it's great. Next question I have is from Mitchell. Mitchell asks, and I'm sorry if that's Michelle, but there's a T in there, so I'm going with Mitchell. Have you observed other PDCs being delivered? And if so, do you believe that permaculturists and PDCs live up to the principles of your grandfather?
That's a really good question. Yes, I have seen a lot of different PDCs being delivered here in Australia, and a few in the US. I think whether they live up to expectations, that's a really good question. To be honest, no, I don't think they do. Yes, it's good they're spreading the message, but I don't think they're spreading the right message when they replace some of the curriculum with their own content. Like if you want to do your own content in a PDC, that's fine. Just add a day or two onto the course, but don't change, you know, the course outline, because when we start to have PDCs that have come from, you know, social permaculture PDC to, you know, broad acre PDC, I think we have to start calling it a different type of course, which I think adds strength to the movement, not a weakness too. So social permaculture is a great thing that's come up in the last few years in the political activism side, but to have a PDC focused on that, you're kind of missing the point of a PDC, because it's very much the foundational imperative knowledge that a lot of it's in the permaculture designer's manual, but a lot of people dispute that that's the curriculum, but it's the best guide I've found for it so far. And the way Bill taught it to start off with, once you've taught a PDC, you can go out and teach, because we need to teach as many people as possible. But I don't think that was the best approach by him, because it didn't ensure a quality of teaching. The message got out there, my God, it did it ever, which was great, which was his kind of goal in it all. But now we have to kind of take a step back and go, okay, how can we, you know, develop this curriculum, which, you know, we are doing through the regenerative ag movement and mycology and all these other, you know, great offshoots that can tie in and underpin permaculture, or permaculture can be a part of. So for me, PDCs change a lot in format. So the way Bill taught them with Darren was half teaching, like half a lesson for before lunch, and then in the afternoon you do a practical. So if you're teaching earthworks, you do all your theory, your contour, your keyline analysis, and then in the afternoon you go and peg out, you go and survey a dam on the landscape, or you go and, you know, build a pond. Or so there's that really great balance of theory and practical, and I see a lot of that missing in a lot of PDCs. A lot of people are very theory heavy, and a lot of people don't learn that way. They have to see it on the ground. And for me as a child, I was one of those learners doing the PDC. Like, I didn't know what a contour looked like until Darren drew it in a sandpit. I was just like, hallelujah, I understand. And that's the whole point of teaching, is getting people to understand. And knowing those different modes of learning, whether you're a practical learner, whether you're, you know, you learn by reading or you learn by listening, but you don't retain a lot of information by listening. You retain more information by writing, but you can't write as fast as people speak. But what reinforces those lessons is doing the practical element too. So if it was, for say, with one of Bill's PDCs, the patterns day of the PDC, he would draw fractals and explain what there was and blow everybody's minds up. But then he would go and explain a fractal in a tree outside, or the orders of a tree outside, and people go, aha, I get it. And that's how a river works as well. Like, you've got your primary order, which is the trunk, and then you've got your tributaries, which is the branch. And so you can see these different patterns occurring across nature. And the thing I see often dropped out of PDCs is the patterns chapter, simply because the teacher doesn't understand it. Well, if you don't understand it, I don't think you should be teaching a PDC. And the way Bill got around it, he rarely taught a PDC by himself. He often used teachers to come in and say, teach earthworks, someone that was more, you know, experienced or had bigger aspects in broad acre landscapes. And that's why he taught with Darren and other teachers so much, because of that experience as well. Like, he could teach it, but teaching a PDC is utterly exhausting, because it's an absolute, like, you're going into the deepest reaches of your mind and you're kind of restructuring it, and you're putting that out there. So, and then you kind of completely changing people's worldview. And I think I've come across a lot of different formats for a PDC, but there's some really amazing ones in Australia, but there are also some really ones that really drag the line down a bit too. There's some good ones that do it like one night a week, or for 3 or 4 months until you've done your 14 days. I think that's a good format, but it kind of and that fits in with the Anglo-Saxon or the capitalist working model. If you've got to work 5 days to pay for your rent or mortgage, you can kind of do it that way. And I think that's a good model, but it's a new model. And I think, but then again, it compromises the kind of structure of a permaculture, a PDC, because it's meant to overwhelm your mind with information. Then your mind kind of restructures. Then you're not able to think for a few weeks, and then you kind of have a thought, and you're like, oh, I did learn something, and then things start turning over from there. And that's a increasing thing. Like I always hear that experience from students too. And I think teaching online is a exciting model, and it's new, and it engages people, but it gets the information across, I think, but it doesn't engage students to the level they need to be engaged. I think the important thing about a PDC is you have conversations with people and you say, oh, great, where can we do this? Because the thing after the online PDCs, I hear increasingly from students, they don't know where to go. And that can often, like, instead of going up and, taking it to the next level, can take them down. They go, oh, I feel so overwhelmed with the world's problems or whatever. So that's why it's really important to do it with a network of friends. And like out of my PDC, I still keep in contact with a lot of the students and the teachers too. So I think that social resilience you get from a PDC is important, but I think it's important to have that kind of disclaimer at the start of an online one as well, like, or have a slide in there like where to go to next, like, yeah, or how to engage this knowledge, because it's such a massive body of knowledge articulated in a PDC that if you don't know how to implement it, will overwhelm you. You just go, oh, I'll just go and have a massive nap to process it. So, yeah, it's an interesting, really interesting and very important question. Thanks.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think that it's important to have multiple PDCs, and if you can, an online one's great for going back, reviewing.
Yeah, yep.
Information. And I would like to see, and hopefully I can in the future do, is an online PDC that's combined with an on-site PDC. So you do your online portion first maybe, and then go do the on-site portion. Yeah, that'd be those models of teaching are really, great and practical, and exciting and engaging too. Like, I think it's really good. I think it's a really positive and constructive way to talk about how we can restructure the different learning processes, and how different workshops can tie into PDCs. So you do your earthworks day, but you still don't know how to do earthworks. You know what an excavator is, but you don't know how to drive one. But what Dave Spicer does in Australia, he actually, has a specialised earthworks course, but you've already done your earthworks day at a PDC, and you know how to tie into that, or you have the basis of knowledge, or kind of the concept of what a contour or a keyline is. There's a lot of additional courses or add-on courses coming out.
Yeah. So that dropped out.
Does that have? Could you explain that a little more, or what the history is there, and how that maybe ties in with how PDCs are conducted today?
Sorry, the connection dropped out for a second. You might just have to repeat that. Sorry. You're back now.
From what I understand, Bill Mollison had a bit of a falling out with universities, or kind of what he thought universities would do to permaculture. And that could be very well why we have PDCs the way we have them now, or this lack of structure. Could you talk about that a little?
So from my understanding from numerous conversations on this topic with Bill, was he wanted he developed permaculture at the University of Tasmania, and there was a lot of different faculties there, and he wanted to bring them together into the one course model, but the university was completely against it. And what was even more dangerous was he wanted to implement the ideas, and they're like, no, you can't do that, we'll give you a salary increase. So, and he was like, I can't work in this environment, I can't write this amazing work and not publish it. How can you guys live with yourself if you're writing incredible solutions for the world but not implementing them? How can we do that? So, but for me, particularly, the model for universities has just changed so much over the last, 40 years since Bill was at universities, and they've kind of, come up to that same level and working on that same plane. But for him at the time, it was he was developing developed the degree of environmental psychology, so understanding how animals think and natural patterns, and I think that's what formed a lot of his insights into how permaculture developed. So I think for the bad rap he gives on university, I think there's still a lot of good things to learn from it as well. And there's PDCs taught as core units in the environmental science degree here in Melbourne, so RMIT, which is quite a big thing. And that's how I've met a lot of my friends, through them doing that course, and they've come to the International Permaculture Convergence at Cuba, and we've kind of hit it off and haven't looked back. So I think, universities have really come on board with it and interdisciplinary knowledge, but I think a lot of the old school thinking that Bill thought, like engineers don't talk to architects at university, they just don't work together, which I think's odd, seeing they work together professionally, and so on and so forth. Like art students don't talk to the architecture department, or they do, but it's completely innovative and new, and you're like, oh, that's weird, we both draw, like shouldn't we learn to draw together? So a lot of those old stigmas still exist, and it's going to take a while for university to unpack that. And that's where the exciting thing of permaculture is, teaching at universities. We can kind of mash them all up together and see what kind of amazing designs come out of it. But I think the cost of that is not having any kind of design standards, or what are the metrics for a good design. And those metrics are being developed now in Australia, like how much more kilos of yield or more pounds of yield per acre do you get for a permaculture garden versus a monoculture garden. So people in Victoria and in Australia are developing those metrics, which are, proving that there's actually, substance to the theory, like there's actually a metric there we can measure off. And I think they're really important to have those kind of rules or guidelines, or if we increase the organic matter in the soil, how much to increase the production? How long does it take to increase the organic matter from 4% in the soil to 6% with a certain animal forage system? Like, we don't have those metrics, and they're only being developed just now they're being developed by the holistic management movement. So we've got a lot to learn from other movements, and they've got a lot to learn from us, and it's only having those communication skills, or those professional peer-reviewed, case studies that we can actually articulate at that level. And I think that's when industry starts to stand up and listen to, when you've got those levels. And that's just something permaculture's been playing catch up. It's still not quite at that level, but it is getting there now.
Yeah, I think it's quickly getting there. And do you think that with the development of these metrics and sort of processes, do you think those would need to be under some kind of enforcement, or do you think that it should be more of a free market thing where people can come up with those metrics, maybe other people come up with other metrics, and whoever's got the best thing just wins out based on who uses it? Or what do you say?
I think it's a diversity of solutions and each one will be different in depending on climate, depending on soil. So a lot of those things have got to be taken into account too. Like I went to Darren Doherty's Polyfaces documentary premiere maybe a year ago, and people are going, "Oh, what's some rainfall Joel Salinger's farming on?" It's just like, it's just, if you don't have those basic metrics, you look like just a old farmer question you get from regional Victoria. "Oh, what's some rain?" They've probably got good rainfall there. They can farm geese, and it's just like, oh, they're missing the whole point of the story, if you know what I mean. But that's the traditional kind of agriculture mindset we're working with. What's the rainfall? Like, you've got to just be able to like say it off the top of your head, whether it's 36 inches or 60 inches or whatever. It's just one of those foundational things you've got to have. And I think, like, going along from your question, I think, yeah, if we've got like the rainfall and then what kind of climate is and what kind of soil, that gives us like a solution. So it's like 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, or you've got your kind of equation there to set up your proposed thing. So I don't necessarily, and when those metrics line up of climate and soil and water, we've got a case study we can compare to another case study too. And it's really important to form these case studies around such parameters. And and a big thing is that you can't control is what happened before you owned your land. Was it industrial farming? Was it an organic farm? Was it a prairie? So, and you can't control what they sprayed on there. They might have only done herbicides, which is like 30 or 40 different varieties of different types of herbicides, which is just astounding. And then there's you've got your DDTs, and you can't control what they do with the land, but you've got to deal with the problem. So there's all those kind of variables you've got to document too. And I think the stronger we have, the stronger, the more case studies we feel around those parameters, the stronger we'll be taken academically. And then we in a really strong position to take down the agro science, movement, because they're the people who give the advice to industrial farmers, agrochemists. So they study soil chemistry, not even, soil biology. It's just simply soil chemistry. Like, if your grass isn't growing good, put some not super nitrate on, or super potassium, or super phosphate. And that's, the whole monoculture thing that's, eroding away at our food base, or our, society base of our food pyramid. And I think once we've got those case studies, we can actually go to a peer review thing and take them down at where they're strongest at. And it's because they've got that degree, they've got that credibility with farmers or whatnot. But the only way permaculturalists can kind of tackle them at the same kind of level is by having a farm, developing it up over, 1, 2, 3 years, whatever stage they might be at, documenting their production, their process, then presenting that to a farmer. But the only other way to get around that is to, have a conversation and talking to conventional farmers and listening to their struggles, because I believe they're good people. I just don't think their values are in the right place. So I've been working with a lot of, conventional industrial farmers that use a lot of chemicals, and been pitching environmental projects to them. But I haven't been pitching them on their environmental basis. I've been pitching them on their economic basis, and because they economically outperform their industrial processes, so they go, where do I sign up? So, and then they go, oh, how's this actually working? And you go, oh, because you're doing things more environmentally, thinking about things a bit differently. It's working a lot better for you, because people have got this, it's a big society misconception, probably the most common one. Like, you either go for the environment or you go for the economy. You can't have them both together. And when we have it both together, it just goes straight up and out of the atmosphere. So that's what really excites me about working with these kind of, business models or people who are economic, like, okay, it has to make money, it has to pay for itself, and, it has to have a 4 or 5 year return on investment. then, you know, you can talk about the second, third, fourth, fifth phase of the project, which might be, you know, organic, you know, making your own organic fertilizers. We go, yeah, great, saving money on fertilizer. Like, they're all on board for us. So yeah, like, you just got to get your foot in the door, and it's that right method of communication too. Like, I will agree with some people, not everybody is open to this message, but there is a way in. And once, like, different, you know, conservative people start doing it in the community, case studies have shown that it's just a trickle-down effect. And yeah, we've been, like, there's people teaching PDCs to conventional farmers like 2 or 3 times a month here in Victoria. So yeah, it's definitely heading in the right direction really quickly.
Yeah, it's a relief to hear others in the permaculture industry, and I'm hearing it more and more and more, with that same kind of mindset. Like, we need to show the economics and be able to produce the scientific evidence of economics, to get these large scale monocropping projects on board, with understanding that this can be not only beneficial for the earth, but beneficial for your pockets.
Yeah, and it won't destroy you economically too, because not the majority, but a fair percentage of permaculture people come as retirees, so they've got their lump sum, they can buy their hobby farm, they can buy their pigs, they don't have to make money off it. But for the majority, or like for every farmer, they have to make money off it. They have to pay their mortgage, they have to pay their land tax, have to pay their power bill. So they can't afford to lose money off it. It's not, you can't pragmatically accept a solution that spends, you know, $300,000 on trees and the income for the farm's $5,000, and you won't see a return on investment for like 15 years from those trees. Like, that does not make pragmatic sense. And that's what permaculture is like a pragmatic, you know, system of knowledge. So people have got to be able to create a livelihood for themselves too. And that's what a big part of permaculture is, creating a livelihood so people can actually exist off the land as well. And it's doing, you know, your market research, finding out where the market gaps are, not necessarily developing niches, but developing better practices or better, you know, systems of thinking that can apply to pragmatic solutions. And when you do that simple step, you come up with some incredible project outcomes that can solve environmental and, you know, economic problems as well. Yep. So yeah, it's pretty incredible what kind of tool we've got up here. We don't necessarily need, you know, a computer or the internet. We've got a pretty amazing kind of bit of hardware between our ears that I think, like, even I forget sometimes because I'm just stuck in a drawing or, you know, whatnot. But and yeah, there's just incredible knowledge in different books too, and bringing that knowledge together like Bill did, reading, writing, research, writing an essay on them, writing an essay on, say, your farm or on your hogs or on your soil, whatever problem you've got, by reading and writing, that'll give you, you know, your solution, and you can publish that online. So and I think we're all like capable of doing it. Like, it's just a matter of having that drive and that focus too, which is often the hard part. It's not necessarily having the skill, that's the hard part, it's developing the skill too. So for me, I couldn't really write when I went to university. I couldn't write an essay to save my life, but now I can write a whole thesis just because I had that kind of that drive, not necessarily the intelligence, but I had the drive to understand too. And I think that's, you know, what got me to where I am and what got Bill to where he was. Like, he had the drive to understand, he had the thirst for knowledge. He went to school back when he was in his mid-40s just to learn how to, you know, write an essay, learn mathematics, you know, learn mathematics and learn all the foundational knowledge that then went on and informed his, you know, scientific and biology career.
Yeah, and I think that really ties back to what you were saying earlier about the lack of pattern understanding in PDCs, because I think that pattern provides a great deal of solutions, or the ability to find solutions is recognizing these patterns.
Dropped out again.
Out to get the seed, or they have a lot of grants that they have to fill. They're having to fund their farm in so many ways that they get stuck in the pattern that, that they have to follow by, and it's finding solutions for them that's going to get them out of that. And I think a lot of farmers want to get out of that. If they didn't have to fertilize, they'd be very happy. It's getting them to that point where they don't is the challenge.
Yeah, for sure. And it's reducing those cost overheads that permaculture can do really well for farmers, like, reducing their fertiliser bill, if not eliminating it by producing their own fertiliser, reducing their water bill, because a lot of farmers pay for water here. So it's talking to farmers in those pragmatic terms that gets them on board too, not necessarily go, oh, do you want me to do a permaculture design? Because farmers go, what's that? It's going, do you want me to save you money on your fertiliser bill? And then just implementing your permaculture principles through it. So it's the way you pitch it. It's not what you say, it's the way that you say it. So permaculture is, it's a great term to use and interrogate and kind of pull apart and kind of be, learn about within the collective that we are. But in order to expand it, we have to, like you're saying, is address it in terms of pragmatic solutions for farmers. So do you want me to eliminate your fertiliser bill or reduce it by, say, 30%? So, or reduce your water bill, or reduce your fuel bill by, growing biodiesel or whatever your specialty might be, or I can improve your income by, helping you grow geese, or if you give me 5 acres of your broadacre property, I can give you a different income that can, supplement. And when you start to talk, money with people and saving, and you're doing something environment, still achieving the same ends of, earth care and people care too.
Absolutely. Well, we only have time for about 2 more quick questions, guys. So the next question's from Mitchell. Actually, sorry, it's from Guy. Guy asked, are there any more writings from Bill that will get published eventually?
That's a really good question. I'm not sure about whether they'll get published, but all of his writings are going to the Tasmanian archives. And I think they're going to be scanned in, so they should be available online in the next few months. So, so there's a lot of writings to scan, and I think, his sons and daughters are doing that side of it. So I think there will be some, there will be definitely some available to, or if not all of his writings available to the public.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
All right, last question from Mitchell. What projects do you foresee doing in the near future?
Well, at the moment, I'm currently working on biodigesters with dairy farms and abattoirs in Victoria, so capturing methane and then turning that into natural gas and LPG to take on, to get them off grid so they don't have to burn coal or use coal seam gas or unethical gas from petroleum. And then that biodigester waste can be used into a high-rich fertiliser, so they produce their own fertiliser. And I've got a few patents on it and a lot of intellectual property around it. So it's a project I'm quite excited about and motivated about. And then it also tackles climate change. And as a second and third step to the project, we feed the CO2 in from the burner into an algae pond. And then the algae is pressed into biodiesel. So you get biodiesel and LPG quality biogas out of it, as well as reducing the climate change impact, because there's 4,000 dairies currently in Victoria, and if we can reduce their impact to nothing, we've reversed, Victoria's climate change impact as well. So it's something, positive and practical we can all, like me and the farming community, can engage with, and it's a highly economic product because you produce your own electricity, heating, gas, cooling, fertiliser, soil, new livelihoods, massive gas sales. So you've got 8 different products out of one existing waste resource. So that's what my focus is on the future for next, year or two to get or next 3 years to get that company really up to speed and put a lot of my energy into that, and that'll give me kind of the financial stability I need to, you know, travel the world and, you know, create permaculture gardens everywhere. So, or broadacre, which is really what I'm interested in at the moment, is working with a lot of broadacre farmers too. So with that cattle, with that biodigester, that opens up the dairy industry, and then the dairy industry opens me up to broadacre farm design. So that's kind of my career pathway for the next few years, I think.
Excellent. I can't wait to see the results, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again soon. It was great meeting you at PVT.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. When are you coming to the States next?
Don't think it'll be in next year, but yeah, I've got a lot of projects I'm pretty deep in here, but maybe maybe in the winter when things quieten down here, I think. So probably, yeah, June or July I could be there.
Awesome. Yeah, well, let me know when you're coming. I'm sure there's plenty of people that want to meet up with you.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. Thank you, guys. And thanks for your great questions and giving me the opportunity to talk to you all. I really appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much, Stuart. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next Tuesday. You can head over to tv.permaethos.com to see who's up next and register for the next presentation. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.